Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. If you've been waiting for Starfield news, and I mean real news, not just speculation, buckle up because November has been quite interesting. So is Bethesda actually planning a Christmas miracle for us with a new DLC that might get shadow dropped? Or is there a new challenger in town, and are they about to steal the spotlight completely? Today we're going to be breaking down the Starborn DLC leaks, the SteamDB data that's got everybody buzzing, and we're also going to talk about the upcoming RPG Exodus and why it might be the biggest threat Starfield has ever faced. Stick around, guys, as we dive into the latest rumours, the evidence, and a head-to-head comparison. Let's get into it. Okay, let's have a look at some real talk here, guys, right? Starfield has had a rough year, and I'm not just talking about the bugs or the loading screens, anything like that. They are still there. It's been over a year since Shattered Space dropped in late 2024, and if you were following the discourse back then, you know it landed with a thud, right? The Steam reviews, they were mostly negative. Community sentiment, well, let's just say people weren't very thrilled with it. It felt a bit like a side quest when people wanted a main story conclusion. The community was looking for that sort of Cyberpunk 2077 moment, you know, the Phantom Liberty redemption arc, which I've talked about before, where the developer actually listened to people and to the fans and delivered something incredible and saved the year. But instead, what did we get? We got complete silence up until now. So November 2025, that changed things, right? And not in the way you'd expect. The leaks started flowing, the data miners have been active, and suddenly we are seeing a little bit of a picture coming together, right? A picture that sort of says Bethesda's been working on something big, something that might actually matter. So let's talk about what that is, and let's talk about the elephant in the room, Starborn. Back in July 2024, eagle-eyed fans did notice that Bethesda had filed a trademark for the word Starborn, and I even did a video on it as well. I'll put the link up in the top right-hand corner here as well. At the time, most people thought, yeah, okay, it's just corporate IP protection. But now, we actually know a little bit more. We know a bit better. So, according to sources that have been reported by MP First and Kit Guru, Bethesda's second expansion for Starfield is officially titled Starborn, and it's scheduled for the first half of 2026. Here's why that title matters. It's not random. If we think about the main story of Starfield, right, the Starborn, the creators, the unity, that's the core of the entire game's narrative. Shattered Space was a side story about House Varun. Was it important? Maybe, but it was not the main event. Starborn sounds like the actual endgame. This sounds like the conclusion to the main story quest. It's the DLC that will answer all the questions that Bethesda has left hanging. And here's what gets me excited. If this is true, it means that Bethesda learned from the Shattered Space feedback. The community said we want more story content that matters, not just side quests. And Bethesda appears to be listening. But things are going to get a little bit messier, okay? Here's where it gets a little bit wild. So in November, data miners did start noticing unusual activity in Starfield's SteamDB depot. For those who don't know what that is, SteamDB is like the X-ray of Steam. It shows you the backend files, the updates, and changes that happen on a game's servers. And the updates that we're seeing, they're not small. They're not just bug fixes. These are the updates that give you content updates, new assets, new file structures. The kind of stuff you see right before a DLC drops. Now this has led to a theory that took the community by storm. A shadow drop. What if, instead of waiting until 2026, Bethesda just drops it? They announce it at the Game Awards in December. Now remember, the Game Awards are on the 11th of December. And if they do announce it, and it's available then, maybe they want to capture that post-holiday gaming window when people actually have some time to play. But here's the thing. I need to be real with you here. This is still speculation. The SteamDB data is real. The updates are there and they are happening. But whether that happens in a December 25 release or a push until 2026, we don't know yet. Now, the Starborn DLC isn't the only thing on the horizon. While we've been waiting for Bethesda to deliver, a new challenger has appeared. Now, I haven't really covered this on my channel, but it has some serious pedigree behind it. We need to talk about Exodus. If you haven't heard about it, you will. It's a brand new sci-fi RPG from Archetype Entertainment, a studio that was founded by the masterminds who gave us Mass Effect and Knights of the Old Republic. Both absolutely phenomenal, amazing games. And they've confirmed a new trailer will be dropping at the Game Awards this month, okay, on the 11th of December. So why should Starfield be worried? Well, let's talk about the premise first, right? You play as Jun Aslan, a salvager turned traveler who pilots ships at near light speed to recover alien remnants for humanity's survival. Sound familiar? But here's the killer feature within Exodus. Time dilation, right? When you travel at near light speed, time moves differently. So a mission that takes you a few days might mean you return to your home base decades or even centuries later. Let that sink in for a minute. The consequences of your choices aren't just immediate. They ripple across generations. You could come home to find your civilization completely changed. Your decisions reshaping the future in ways you did not expect. That is a level of narrative depth that could be revolutionary if they pull it off right. Secondly, it's being pitched as a direct competitor to Starfield's weaknesses. Where Starfield is a massive, open-ended sandbox with procedural planets that didn't get pulled off very well, I might add, Exodus is focusing on that tight, cinematic, narrative-driven experience, just like the Mass Effect games that people still love, and I love them as well. We're talking deep companion relationships, branching storylines based on real consequences, and a story led by a character voiced by Matthew McConaughey. You've also got a unique gauntlet system where you sort of fuse alien remnants to unleash devastating power. Again, sound kind of familiar? Your companions aren't just NPCs following you around either. They are elite warriors with their own loyalty systems and real impact on how battles actually play out. So the big question for me is, will Exodus eat Starfield's lunch? Right? They are different games. Starfield is about sprawling exploration, creating your own story in a sandbox universe. Exodus is about deep, consequential storytelling where time itself becomes a mechanic that forces you to confront the weight of your decisions. But with a release expected in 2026 and a huge reveal coming in just a matter of days when this video goes out at the Game Awards, the pressure on Bethesda has never been higher. If Starborn is just more Starfield, more procedurally generated planets and side quests, is that going to be enough when a game built on the legacy of Mass Effect is right there showing off its cinematic storytelling? It makes the reveal for Starborn at the Game Awards absolutely critical. Now, Bethesda, don't mess this up. They cannot play it safe. They need to show that they understand what people really, really want and a story that actually matters. Okay, so look, while we're waiting on clarity on Starborn, there are some other rumours floating around that deserve a mention, okay? First of all, there was talk of Terran Armada, another possible DLC that cropped up around Starfield's second anniversary back in September. And I did do a video on that as well. I'll pop it up in the top right hand corner for you if you want to go and check that out. Details are very, very vague, but if it is real, it could be a faction-based expansion, or even part of the Starborn narrative itself. Think more sort of space warfare, more alien contact, maybe a full-blown conflict scenario with the Celestials. From Exodus. Wait, no, that's the wrong game. You can't get that idea. You kind of get the idea, right? It's juicy. But until we get more proof, it's all wishful thinking. The real thing that we're paying attention to, though, space travel improvements. We know that Starfield's loading screens are a pain in the ass. No one likes them. Everyone calls it loading simulator. The constant jumping between planets without that sense of seamless travel that fans are craving. I mean, Christ, Spaceborne 2, a game by, I believe it's a single developer, has done planet to space and internally into space travel with no problem whatsoever. And that's one guy. You would think that Bethesda, with their team of developers, could get it right. But Tim Lamb, one of the lead creative producers at Bethesda, actually teased this back in August. He said they were working on features players have been asking for, with specific mention of improving that space travel rewards and mechanics, okay? The community has been asking for something called Super Cruise, basically the ability to fly between planets without jumping through a loading screen. An official implementation would be game-changing. It would be fantastic to get rid of loading screens. If that's bundled with the Starborn expansion or released as a companion update, we don't know. Okay, it could actually fix one of the game's biggest gripes, in my opinion. Alright, so here's my take on all this. With Exodus now in the picture, right, the pressure is on for Bethesda. Bethesda isn't just competing with its own past promises. It's now competing with the future of sci-fi RPGs being built by BioWare legends. That's huge. Okay, I think Bethesda has to come out swinging at the Game Awards. My prediction for it: they cannot afford to just tease Starborn for 2026 and call it a day. Not when Exodus is going to be right there showing off its cinematic story and time dilation mechanics as well. So I'm kind of doubling down a little bit on the surprise, right? I predict a cinematic trailer for Starborn that confirms it's a main story expansion tackling the Starborn mystery head on. A spring 2026 release date, and here's the key. To counter the Exodus hype and keep players engaged now, they shadow drop a major free update. That would be good. Maybe it's a vehicle update that we've been wanting, or the rumored space travel overhaul. Something tangible to get players back in the cockpit. We all know that Starfield has had a drop-off of numbers, right? Playing just, a 24-hour peak as I'm recording this, around 3,500 players. That is Steam. That is not on Xbox. So I don't know what the true numbers are. That is just for Steam, okay? But in the last 6 months, it hasn't really gone above sort of like 7,300 players. Okay, so the numbers have dropped off. We need to get players back in, right? The modding community is doing a great job of trying to revitalize it and add to the game. But with these dwindling numbers, is that going to continue? Right. Competition is good for us gamers, right? The threat of Exodus might just be the fire that forces Bethesda to deliver the redemption arc that Starfield so desperately needs. We could actually get the game we were promised in year 2. So guys, what do you think? Are you more excited for Starfield's supposed Starborn DLC or the new challenger Exodus? Because honestly, both landing in 2026 could make next year the best year for sci-fi RPGs we've had in ages. Okay, and that doesn't take into account a new Mass Effect rumors as well. Okay, what does Bethesda need to do to keep you playing their game instead of jumping ship to, let's say, Exodus or another game out there? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. I read all the comments and I'd love to hear what you're hoping for. Guys, thank you so much for watching and so much for all the support on the channel. If you've enjoyed this breakdown, please smash that like button and subscribe for more gaming news, DLC updates, and deep dives on multiple games in the channel. Let me know in the comments what you would like me to see on this channel, okay? We will be covering Exodus 100%. We're covering Starfield. We're covering Cyberpunk. There's a lot of games out there. And yeah, I can't wait for a number of games as I put out previously. I'm a big space guy, so any space games I will try. Right, guys, we're going to be covering the Game Awards as well, so stay tuned for any updates as well. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day out there, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a good day, everybody.